the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Do believe we are up there now, so if you're on the social media and just seeing us there now, we're there, and we'll still be doing all the things we usually do here at the end-ish of the week is what we're really getting at here, because sure, it's Thursday, but this is our last live show for this week as we're about to go off for the Christmas holiday break. So this is going to be our open line show for the week, so I think we've pretty well settled on Throwdown Thursday. Let's take that in the metaphorical and enthusiasm sense, and not in the literally throwing hands. If you can figure out how to do that through the radio, I'll be mildly terrified / impressed, but otherwise, bring the passion, bring the what you think is important to talk about, as we were going to be, well, pressure relief valve for the week is still definitely needed, and there's been a lot of pressure going on in a whole lot of subjects and a whole lot of ways here, so we will be taking on all those subjects, particularly if you're calling in. Keep a civil tongue in your mouth, otherwise we'll have to get you off the line there. We still have some of those restrictions on what the deadly words, certain graphic descriptions, etc. Just saying, don't use your imagination, and let's just talk about the things that, of course, affect us here in the borderland and beyond, as we have opened up that filter we usually try to take many issues on for today, as well, that's what we do. So if you're with us, as Amber Banda is on doing rock on over on the social media, appreciate the example there with also Jerry Hart and Monica Cervantes here. Amos Lauda saying we're frozen. Shouldn't be. Looks like we're up on our end, so if you're having any issues, well, try it maybe on one of the different outlets there, and let us know if that's working better for you. Again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is where you can find us in order to have that there. But if you can hear us, well, let us know. Should be working out, and if not, we'll do some digital percussive maintenance. Means you turn it off and on again, since you can't hit a program, which was the best solution in previous days. In any case, we'll be delving into those issues, so if you want to add your 2 cents, bring up a topic here, want to get into the discussion of it, social media is a good way to do it. But as we do at the end of the shows for the week, we are getting into, well, the phone calls as well available. That number to call, if full of at the moment, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Bernadette Bandicole there. Okay, Amos saying you can hear me, so okay, that's the most important thing. If you like seeing, apparently there's a whole fan club for my facial expressions out there. Sure, I get that added bit of interaction, but as long as you can at least understand what we're talking about, that's the most important thing, I will say. So again, a lot of stuff we'll be getting into today, and a lot of subjects. A couple of things I want to just set the table with. That, of course, there has now been the swearing in of the new district attorney for El Paso. Former El Paso Judge Bill Hicks has now been sworn in, and will be serving now until just over 2 years from now. 2024 is when he is set for. So, Amos, if you're still having problems with the feed there, maybe try refreshing, because we're getting seeing it fine working on this end and from a few others. So just try giving it a restart. Again, digital percussive maintenance, great phrase. I use it as often as possible. So again, Bill Hicks now sworn in. Ceremony happening a little bit after our show yesterday at the El Paso County Courthouse, and a lot of support going on there, including state legislative delegation, law enforcement agencies. And took about 15 minutes, apparently, and led by remarks by El Paso County Sheriff Wiles and a judge, and, of course, Hicks himself. One of the most important things he said here is that, quote, the reason for all of this support is so important is because it will take all of us working together to make the district attorney's office the shining example of integrity and honesty that it should be. Of course, this comes in the aftermath of the now former El Paso district attorney, or district attorney for El Paso. I should correct myself, because the district attorney's district also covers Hudspeth and Culberson counties here in Texas, of what was going on. Let's go ahead and try one of those other sources there if that one's what's worked better for you. But Ion Graham, Monica Cervantes also chiming in, letting us know. Appreciate the status updates here, but that's one of the reasons we mentioned all those places. So, of course, all of this coming from with the district attorney's office and the ouster, and still technically, I think, pending other cases related to the performance of office, but again, for the former district attorney for El Paso, Yvonne Rosales, of which there have been some interesting editorials or retrospectives written already. I'm sure more of those will be coming. And of course, a lot of eyes will continue to be on that office, as there is impending fixes, getting back on track with some of those those kind of regular cases, the either misdemeanors or low-level felonies that we had seen roughly 1,000 dismissed by so far by the Actually, public defender's department, some statements coming out from them as well, saying that looking forward to kind of reestablishing that relationship. And then, of course, the August 3rd shooting case with the indicted shooter. That's kind of being the overarching topic, the bright flashing headline billboard in the face of this whole situation. And arguably, I would still say that all of this kerfuffle involving the office has been more or less a sideshow to that central topic. It's one of the most important bits of prosecution to have happened in our area, and I'm very willing to say living memory. Any case, some of the other things important going on out there, like John Browse had mentioned, going to hit 22 degrees tonight. El Paso won't freeze solid after all. That's still pretty well below freezing. I mean, to my understanding, because I've always managed to be out of town. We've had like the super deep freezes, like 2011 comes to mind. And in that case, it wasn't necessarily that the temperatures got low enough. It was that it got low enough for long enough. So that's the real thing. I mean, like a solid week of below freezing temperatures, don't really care what you're dealing with in town. We're just not built for that. I mean, there's a whole lot of like pipes going through exterior walls. That is just not how they do it anywhere else besides here. Like I'm talking like Albuquerque doesn't even do it that way in some of the wall construction I've seen, because they anticipate, well, what happens if there's extended cold temperatures? It's not in the construction DNA, best way I can think to describe it. So yeah, again, people, pipes, pets, plants, cage them all, bring them inside if at all possible, take care of them, and make sure you're keeping an eye on them so you don't have any further damage going on with that here. But that's some of the bigger topics going on in our region. One other thing I do want to mention, because it is scheduling based here, that the Sun Bowl Fan Fiesta has actually been canceled now in deference to the fact that the downtown convention center has now being engaged entirely to be used as a shelter. I mean, we've already got warming stations that have been activated in the city of El Paso due to these extended cold temperatures. It's not just the temperatures on their own, by the way, the wind chill factor, because that'll be, I mean, if you're out and about, it's going to be getting down into the potentially single digits, feel like. So yeah, it's going to be bad. It's going to be some significantly bad weather in our region. And given the fact that we also have this whole, border security and immigration situation that is going on apace here again. So just as that note, the Sun Bowl Fan Fiesta that was set for December 29th, of course, one day before the Sun Bowl itself, has now been canceled, as, of course, the area still continues to be used as one of the shelters. Also of note that there have been two of those other vacant EPISD schools, which it still kind of blows my mind that Moorhead was a vacant school. There's so many jokes from middle school I can't use anymore. But in any case, it's going to be used as also one of those shelters, so that keeps going on there. RJ also asking if Yvonne was relieved or depressed, wonder if she has a basement or plans to leave town. Interesting question. Honestly, kind of my back of the hand thinking, didn't talk about it much on air because I didn't want to interfere with this case at all. That, I guess I'll still say this now, is that if this case, the August 3rd case, isn't handled appropriately, anyone involved with it, I have to kind of say, they're going to have to leave town, because I don't see anyone putting up with that person if there's, again, anything of a technical, like a verdict being decided, sure, it being decided on reasons of evidence and the way arguments went, as opposed to anything technical, that would be, I don't want to hyperbolize here, like the height of travesty or something, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find a bigger example of probably more ire being directed on one person than whoever was at the helm of that effort if it were to go south. So a lot of pressure there. And RJ also adding 2011 minus the snow. What we're looking at here, got to pray for these migrants and homeless. Again, warming stations have been set up. We'll talk more about that a little bit later in the program, but I've talked a lot about things. Let's take at least one call before we get into the next break of this hour right now. Again, this is our call-in show, open lines for the week. So full up at the moment, but just keep that number in mind, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hello there. Yeah, this is Eric the Philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
The irrationality of human beings is something I'm passionate in understanding and have studied formally and informally for 2 decades of my life. Why people make the irrational assumptions they do can't be reasoned with logically, don't fact-check anything, and think bad faith partisan information sources like Sean Hannity, Alex Jones, Cato, K-Fox, Glenn Beck, Center for Immigration Studies, etc. are credible sources fascinate me to no end. Even if your average conservative weren't blind partisans and wanted to fact-check something in good faith, they couldn't. Even most educated conservatives are slaves to ideology and the biases that cloud objective policy analysis and ideas in general. Conservatives are generally conditioned by right-wing media to assume in confirmation bias not research. And I'm perplexed by your lack of understanding of the concept of being good faith or bad faith, or at least you pretend to be. The other day,
Okay, so to answer that question there, we keep going back and forth. I thought we had gotten over this. I thought this was a good sign of personal growth on your end, that just by saying you're good faith doesn't actually mean you are. Because, again, good faith, I mean, I read you the definition, not last time, but most recently. But let's just pull it up. Good faith debates here. Let's see what is being put for. Okay, we're looking at other way. But good faith defined by, okay, you hate Cato, apparently, so you're kind of poisoning the well there. But good faith would be their definition of a good faith argument or discussion is one in which both parties agree on the terms on which they engage, are honest and respectful of one another person's dignity, follow generally accepted norms of social interaction, and generally want to hear what the other person thinks and has to say. Now, genuinely, given that definition, okay, source aside here, I don't see much partisanship involved in that kind of definition here. Would you think that you have been genuinely, particularly when you say that you get into the like all conservatives or all Christian conservatives, those kind of statements, do you really truly believe that those are good faith arguments? Honestly, be honest with me now.
all right, see, the wild thing about you citing the Bad Faith Cato Institute is that their definition of bad faith is bad faith. It's literally the tone policing logical fallacy, and it's the pearl clutching that I've repeatedly brought up, which are your go-to responses, your straw man arguments and arguments of incredulity, in order to ignore the logical criticisms and of conservatism and the logical arguments I'm presenting to you. You know, tone policing.
Okay. Let's get past the sourcing issue, if that's going to be the hang up we're having here. I feel about the same way about this, like we do the whole semantic debates. What would you define good faith as then? Let's try to at least get to a baseline here. Good faith, the idea of it. How do you define it then?
All right. The way that you define it is by being honest. And bad faith would be like purposely deceiving the audience or your listeners, for example, as opposed to engaging in the logical argument and criticisms being presented to you. That is it. It's not civility. It's not, oh, you weren't sensitive to my feelings enough, or, oh, you're making sweeping generalizations. You're insulting my audience. Those are all excuses to not address the substance and the logic being presented, to ignore the realities and to sweep those under the rug.
Let me make sure I heard you right here. Sweeping generalizations would be a feature of good faith argument. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from here, and I keep running into, well, some of the phrases you put up here, but okay, specific question here. Are sweeping generalizations allowed to be a part of good faith discussion, argument, etc.?
There are absolutely generalizations that you can make that are logically consistent and intellectually honest. Most importantly, intellectual honesty is a foundational principle of being in good faith and journalistic integrity. You know, like I looked at, you know, I messaged you direct messages about Barbara's white supremacist links.
Sure, and we've talked about those.
I noticed at the time your business page, or whatever it's called, it said you were a journalist, which I had some issues with based off of your coverage of things. But then I saw you changed it to news personality, and I know that's what right-wing propagandists do.
Okay, let's make something clear here. We've changed nothing on the definition of our page. We have multiple pages out there. So let me just say, if you're going to try to like attack foundations here, saying, no, I don't even want to deal with your arguments, I'm going to do this. Okay, I guess maybe not ad hominem in this case, but organizational, saying that, well, I don't like you based on the basis of it. I mean, let's kind of go with the Cato argument there. You're saying that, oh, well, they're bad faith, and therefore I don't have to agree with anything of them. You're not actually engaging on the topics is part of the issue we're actually coming at with. So let's go to that point you were making about intellectual dishonesty. Now, you've made some sweeping statements on that before, but okay, specifically, like we've talked about the numbers that we had up yesterday, when it comes to those, what numbers do you disagree with, and why do you disagree with them? And if you're coming back with something about like, well, I don't like the way that the focus on them is, let's talk about the issues here. Because if you're saying that, well, I don't like these people and therefore nothing they can say is right, that would be not good faith in my mind here. So what numbers are we talking about are you actually having issues with?
I address the substance of Cato's definition of bad faith. It's illogical for those reasons and those reasons alone. Tone policing is a literal logical fallacy. It's used to not address to the logical arguments and substance.
Okay, I don't see where tone policing comes in there. If we're going to go back to that debate here real quick, then, I mean, yeah, I brought it up, so fair enough here. Okay, are you calling that saying being honest and respectful of the other person's dignity as being tone policing here? Is that the sticking point we're having?
Tone policing is, yes, the logical fallacy is, I don't need to address your logical argument because you weren't respectful to my feelings. And that varies per culture. So that you're just automatically writing off the idea, the logical arguments and legitimate criticisms of entire cultures just because they don't align with the social norms of a political discourse. Cato's Institute of Good Faith is literally bad faith. Literally, and I just logically argued it. In Cato, they only exist. They were created by the Koch brothers to fabricate research, to misinform the working class, to think giving tax cuts to the rich and cutting regulations is.
Okay, we're getting into beyond what was actually being argumented here. So I think I'm getting to some of the core issues here, that just because you make a statement that you believe to be true doesn't mean that someone else has to agree with it. You do understand with that, right? That you can put forth, say, oh, this is my perspective and this is why you should agree with me. That calling out logical fallacies, and I mean, we want to go through that here. I got literally a deck of these things, these critical thinking, like I say, is biases or logical fallacies, such as, hey, your favorite straw man right there, false cause, personal credulity, loaded questions, or even the whole ideas you put forth about there being honestly, I think about the no true Scotsman one kind of example that you bring up a lot here. So if we want to just play that card game, we definitely can. But if you're saying that because you argued something and someone disagrees with you that they are bad faith, that's kind of not how this works. You got to understand that, right?
No, your arguments from incredulity, you just did it again. You ignored my logical criticisms of Cato's definition of bad faith, and then you went to tone policing, the logical fallacy. And mind you, there's more than 52 logical fallacies and cognitive biases you need to be aware of.
Yeah,
so
sure.
You need to expand your deck or your understanding of those. Because
it's a shorthand, dude. Come on.
Discourse on the issues, and more importantly, the policy matters that impact our city. You're presenting bad arguments.
Okay. No. Let's talk about the policy then. Getting into the policy part of it, because I mean, as you started out this one, and as you often have, it's about, okay, everyone here is bad, but let me argue with you a bit here. Again, the whole idea, if you're starting with everyone that disagree with me is a bad and or evil person, you got to admit that makes this not that. And if you want to actually go into, we've talked about this previously, maybe you weren't listening or not, about what was going on with the whole concept of cognitive biases and even the way people interpret things, that if you're attacking people, again, maybe efficacy is what I'm actually trying to get at here, that if you're wanting to change people's minds, I'll put this to you before, actually, if you are trying to look at new information, if someone is berating you about it, how you're a bad person for not believing as they do you tend to find that persuasive in your own life or in your own experience? Literally.
I've debated conservatives my entire life. I know what works and what doesn't work, and what capacity of logical thought and reasoning they're capable of. So you can't reason with these people if you
really, that's what you're going with.
Sources and they refuse to read them. You provide logical arguments. They refuse to provide logical counter arguments. You have to appeal to ethics or love for one's country, love for the Constitution. So that's why I use such inflammatory language at times to appeal to your values. But generally, conservatives I have found have none.
Okay, I really got to back up on this one here real quick. Yeah, I'm getting some people saying that that we have been taking this call for a minute, but again, you get me on a good discussion, and that's a. You're going to keep me going on to it. Are you really saying that you're purposely trying to inflame people to get them to change their minds, that you're trying to upset people in order to get them to agree with you? Is that kind of the gist you're going with here?
To read the sources, to cure their willful ignorance of sources and logical arguments, you have to appeal to them somehow, because the blind partisanship you instill in them produces this pathological willful ignorance and blind tribalism that harms democracy.
Okay, when you talk about tribalism, you're literally juxtaposing that with you saying, you people as opposed to like saying calling an out group. Okay, let's provide a new definition for good faith that I think will operate on this show. Good faith would be of wanting to actually discuss something, have a back and forth, and hear what other people have to say. What I think we keep ending up with here is haranguing, that you're not really interested in what other people have to think or say. You just want to make sure they know what you think and know that you disagree with them, dislike them, you peopling them. So I think we're gonna move on from that. I got enough people on the line here saying that we've entertained this long enough, and I'm kind of tended to agreeing with them here, because if you want to talk about the issues, the specific issues, and how insert group X here is a bad group of people is not an issue in that way here, and not the way we're talking about it. You want to talk about policy, we certainly can do that, but if all we're going to be doing here is haranguing on a group of people that you find yourself disagreeing with, just haranguing them and arguing with them and shouting at how they're bad people from step one, I have no idea how you find that persuasive. If you've had your mind changed by that kind of argument in the past, that would be fascinating to me, because that's not how people work. So if you think that, well, they should just respect me, you're not actually meeting people where they are, among other things. But really, if you're wanting to talk about the issues as opposed to just lambast people, we can do that. But until the next time here, we'll give you another shot next week. We're going to move on from there for now. So it is free for all. Well, Thursday, Throwdown Thursday, what we're calling it here. So that's why we're doing these calls, among other things. But okay, yeah, you get me on a debate here, you're probably going to keep me going on with it. But we got those phone lines open, and we'll get to more calls here coming up after this next break. So stay tuned, more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. That number to call again is 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound still dealing with a crash at the Artcraft exit ramp, so watch for delays in that area. In fact, it's slow for you from Artcraft over to about Mesa Street. Also still seeing volume on 10 westbound, Lee Trevino over towards McRae, and watch for crash activity on Gateway. This is going to be westbound right around Sumac. I'm Ryan Levine, and I'm keeping an eye on your roadways.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Once upon a time, a tornado ripped through an Alabama community. But we'll bring you the story of a family who lost their house, but didn't lose their home. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Water heating can account for up to 25% of the energy consumed in your home. Save money and energy and improve the comfort of your home by turning down the temperature of your water heater from 140 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It can save you up to 22% on your energy bill annually. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
A construction site is a noisy place where things can be misinterpreted. We need to redo the drywall. It can sound a lot like,
rewire the hall?
The firing, Paul? Wait, what did I do?
Or even,
install a waterfall. Whose dumb idea was this?
Be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, how about that drywall?
The bicycles, the toy fire trucks. Instead of giving gifts that kids will outgrow, invite grandparents and friends to contribute to your child's future with the UNest app. UNest allows parents to create an investment account for their kids that makes it easy to gift funds that can be used for college tuition, a first car, and more, just by sharing a link. To get started, download the UNest app from the App Store or Google Play. See terms and conditions at unest.co. That's UNEST.co.
Updated COVID vaccines are here, just in time for the season that brings us all closer. Just in time for added protection against the original COVID virus and Omicron. Just in time for crowded stores and great big family dinners. Updated COVID protection is here. And if you haven't had a vaccine since September, it's time to give yourself the gift of updated protection. Find updated COVID vaccines at vaccines.gov. We can do this. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Amanda Guillen. UTEP is expanding its partnership with Google. The university says it'll now be able to offer the highly sought-after Google certification to its students. The certificate shows students have additional online skills that should give them an edge in the job market. It'll be offered through certain degree programs, and UTEP students will also have the option of getting the Google certification through standalone courses at no additional cost. And a big local news story is El Paso's newly appointed district attorney is now officially on the job. Former Judge Bill Hicks was sworn into office on Wednesday as the DA for the 34th Judicial District, which covers El Paso, Hudspeth, and Culberson counties. Governor Abbott's appointee took his oath of office in the ceremonial courtroom at the El Paso County Courthouse. Hicks added any personnel changes at the DA's office will happen after the new year begins. That has been your CBS 4 News Update. I'm Amanda Guillen.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound still dealing with a crash at the Artcraft exit ramp, so watch for delays in that area. In fact, it's slow for you from Artcraft over to about Mesa Street. Also still seeing volume on 10 westbound Lee Trevino over towards McRae, and watch for crash activity on Gateway. This is going to be westbound right around Sumac. I'm Ryan Levine, and I'm keeping an eye on your roadways.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our cold Arctic air mass will move in overnight, bringing with it some bitterly strong cold winds. Friday morning will be a very difficult morning to get around town. If you are not properly dressed, it will be dangerous with wind chill factors as low as 10 degrees. We are staying very cold through your day Friday and windy. By Saturday, we'll start to have lighter winds and we'll start to see slightly warmer temperatures. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Once upon a time, a tornado ripped through an Alabama community. But we'll bring you the story of a family who lost their house, but didn't lose their home. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. The Christmas season is here, and this is our gift to you. We're offering our biggest discounts of the year on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory.
Get our biggest discounts of the year and exceptional trade-in values during the Big Finish sales event at Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. For a limited time, get $5,000 below MSRP and super low 4.9% APR for 72 months on new 2022 Ram 1500 Low-Star models. $5,750 below MSRP on new 2022 Durango SUVs, $4,000 off new 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokees, all with no payments for 90 days. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL, 4.9% APR, 1606 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Hey Texas, did you know that individuals living with serious mental illness are more susceptible to severe COVID-19? Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov for vaccination resources to help reduce the risk and keep yourself and your fellow Texans informed and protected this holiday season. Stay healthy, Texas.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org. This report is sponsored by unbound.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We get into a lot of stuff here, and, well, that's the purpose of today. Last live show for the week means it's our open line show, and we are taking those calls throughout both hours. The line's probably going to be pretty well full throughout all of it. So, Try to make sure that you're being on the spot with it as we end the previous call there. And the number to keep it down, take it down for yourself, is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Let me just say here that if you want to talk about issues of going on with politics, major positions being put forth by, say, the political parties, yeah, we can certainly talk about that, and often do, particularly like one of those things that has come up here. So I haven't been able to do the total deep dive, but again, a little bit more up to speed on the omnibus spending bill that is coming forth and, now been, I think it's on its way or hasn't been signed just yet, or may already have been. It gets a little bit of a blur on a day like today as we're preparing for all the topics that are potentially coming up. But if you're just wanting to say that, and these people suck, and that kind of like being it, we're going to move on, just plain and simple, because if you want to talk about the issues, we will always, that's primarily what, I put forth anyway. Sure, we get into other context points when we get calls from the audience here, but you're interested in doing that, you're in the right place, and we will keep doing that as we do every Monday through Friday, Thursday this week, but usually Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. In any case, let's get back to those phone lines right now. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. Question to Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Do you expect to get good faith news and truthful information from your government and president and your news sources that you get your news from? Okay, that's
All right.
a question. Do we remember what they said at the end of the second quarter of this year? They said something about that we were not in a recession, although we had two consecutive negative growth GDPs in our economy.
Right? I
right?
recall a phrase along the lines of like transitory inflation, that a phrase that has, I don't remember if it was exactly that time frame or if it had been already abandoned by that point, but definitely earlier this year that was talked about as this is just transitory, and that phrase has been moved away from, as this does seem to be. I mean, we're still at 7%-ish at this point.
But there was no recession, and they keep on saying there's no recession. Nobody asked the question that, according to Joe Biden at the time, he, quote, said, our job market remains historically strong. Our economy created more than 9 million jobs since I came into office, in no small part because of the people on this stage. Our economy created more than 1 million jobs in the second quarter. Now, the question would be, how do you get negative growth second quarter with 1 million new jobs created? Okay, nobody asked that question. Now, it's basically impossible, okay? And one of the things that, they kept on saying in the Bureau of Labor Statistics report, and everybody was saying that we can't be in a recession because we had 1 million new jobs. I mean, jobs report suggests the Biden economy is not in a recession, wrote the New York Times.
And that's why I've talked a lot about these mixed indicators.
Let me go on just for a minute. Okay, just for a minute. The truth came out the other day. The Philadelphia Fed decided to check those numbers, and they found the U.S. economy did not add more than 1 million jobs in the second quarter of this year. Guess how many jobs they really added?
No, I have no idea. I mean, there's so many different ways to calculate this. That what is the number that you're pointing at there?
That's the Philadelphia Fed. This is how they. Okay, we're talking about the Fed. Okay?
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay. Instead, the net additional jobs was 10,000. 1 million that the president and our government was telling us about, and the actual number was 10,000. Do you find that to be a little bit, kind of like our government lying to us? And also, it's a matter because of those statements, Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, has been, because we've got such a strong growth in our economy, that he's raising interest rates,
right,
killing jobs. So what happens when you have a negative, you actually have a very, very low job growth, and then you add to that rates that are going to kill more jobs, what is that a recipe for our economy? It's called disaster. So you have to, I mean, is this truthful? Is this what our government is are they leading us down into this boiling water where we're expected to believe everything they say now? How do you believe anything they said when they came up with these numbers?
I mean, the whole initial contention of 9 million jobs added since the start of the term of office. I mean, that is obviously spin. I mean, there's no other real way I can think of to describe that here, because it's like saying that, as we've talked about previously, well, we did a bungee jump off a cliff, and if you only measure from when you're at the bottom of the bungee jump rope, well, we've risen the fastest that we ever had, without missing the whole point of the picture that, oh, right, there was this huge drop off that happened right before that. So calling that as being put forth as essentially the supposition behind it would be that, oh, look how much we've done. This has been so positive. We've added this many. Don't forget about what happened before and the fact that the economy was basically closed in a lot of places and for a lot of sectors. Yeah, so that's, the whole 9 million figure is, sure, that's why there's the phrase out there, lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics, because depending on the way you frame it, and that's kind of what's getting at your later point there, that, sure, you could be talking about adding 1 million, but if we're talking about people that had removed themselves from the workforce, adding themselves back to the workforce, do we really consider that new jobs being created, or essentially old jobs being able to be gone back to, or if it's not even the same position of just people that previously had jobs now able to get to it? So that's part of the initial free part of it here. I mean, it is. Yeah, that's why I guess I'm not too surprised about these potential other figures, because, even when the way you talk about unemployment, you were talking about jobs numbers, yes, but the way you talk about unemployment is the rates that there are, that is not representative of the total amount of people in the United States that do not have jobs, because there's a few both sensical and then maybe less so categories that go into it, including, people of not working age or who are retired. Like, sure, I get that. We don't want to count toddlers in the unemployment numbers, because that wouldn't be reasonable. But then if we're talking about people who have removed themselves from the labor force, no longer actively seeking work, that's where it gets a little bit, maybe I would think that maybe should be kind of still in there.
Do you understand from what I said? I'm basically saying that our government is lying to us. They lied to us. Biden lied to us.
Yeah, I get your core contention there.
That is out of his own mouth. And so how are we supposed to trust anything? Also, Eric, one more thing. Please look up the Trusted News Initiative. Trusted News Initiative. It'll explain why you have been gaslighted to the point where you believe everything that you're reading in the news. Okay? Look up the Trusted News Initiative, and maybe you'll learn something. Okay. Also, one more thing, the last thing, and I would like to say this: please, people, remember to take your vitamin D, gargle with Scope, and use 1% povidone iodine nasal spray to protect you from COVID and other respiratory diseases. It may save your life.
Fair enough here.
Merry Christmas.
You too as well. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there, and Happy New Year in case we don't hear before then as well.
All right. Stay well, stay safe, and God bless.
You too as well. Appreciate it. And with that, okay, let's take at least one more call on here, get kind of back on track with these breaks. We do have, again, an open line show for the week, Throwdown Thursday, what we're calling it, and we're kind of pretty well on the track for that. We do have John over in Central online with us here right now. John, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
Okay. I want to bring the conversation back to what's going on here in downtown El Paso. Would that be okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. I called on Tuesday at the end of the 4 o'clock hour. I wanted to have a conversation with you, but since it was the top of the hour or the end of the hour.
Oh, yeah. We had to end up cutting a little bit short. Yeah, I understand.
I understand. Now I think I have at least 5 minutes to kind of
give or take if we can.
A little bit with you about it.
Sure.
Two I brought up. I'm going to go ahead and give in on one of the points. I think I probably upset some people about it. I said that I would be calling the migrants coming over the border illegal aliens. In order to kind of get over that, from now on, I'll refer to them as migrants. Okay?
Okay. I mean, just because that's come up a couple of times, so you'll definitely keep making your point there. I just want to say that illegal aliens is still one of the official, like, governmental definitions that is being used, not to refer to them as, extraterrestrials, but in the essentially a slightly more archaic use of the phrase, similar to like foreign, being alien of not of this area. So it is still within some federal documentation there, but there end up being these weird debates in it. So yeah, I'll grant your choice of phrasing here.
Like I say, us conservatives are give in. We're not so stubborn that we have to kind of always win. Okay?
Fair enough.
That's fine. Okay, second point. This is a quote from me. This administration is importing activities. I didn't get a chance to elaborate on that. Let me just kind of say a little bit on that. First of all, let me give you some background about myself.
Mm-hmm.
The Air Force, I was stationed in Panama. On TDY, I did go into San Salvador, Honduras. It was just regular maintenance on aircraft. Okay.
Okay.
So I do know the area. I was there for 2 years in Panama. I did travel, and since I'm Hispanic, I was able to go into the shanty towns, into the little pueblos, the little ranchitos, whatever they call them. And I was able to see it firsthand how the conditions are over there. Okay.
Okay.
I did notice some of these Central American gang members. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. On Tuesday, I did go over to Tuesday afternoon. I took a drive by that area, by the corner of where the gas station, the Greyhound station is. Today, I got out of my pickup, and I dressed like a migrant, just to blend in, and I took a walk by.
Mm.
So I'm not here just sitting home looking at the news, and I actually have been around over there downtown. Okay.
Okay.
So, is it your understanding that the city has offered all migrants shelter from tonight's cold weather?
I don't know if necessarily all, but the offer has certainly been made. I mean, we've got at least 3 big facilities having been set up. The convention center right there in downtown, and then those 2 other, I do believe they're both middle schools, if I'm not mistaken, about Bassett, as well as then, of course, Moorhead on the kind of east and then west sides as available for that. I'm not entirely sure if they're up and running yet, but to my understanding, that was the intention. And there are also the warming centers that have been set up in order to allow for refuge from these freezing temperatures that we are impending upon.
Okay. Then you don't have to answer this question. This is just giving it out here just for to think about it. Why would some individuals, 18 to 25-year-old males and family units, refuse to take the city up on going to shelters?
I think I know what you're referring to there as well. I mean, there's been some reporting about that. There's even been people still sleeping outside even as the temporary shelters open. A story from our news partners there at KFOX 14 titled very similarly. And so I guess I don't necessarily understand that, but I get that's more of a kind of a rhetorical and out there question. So maybe there's not the information put out about enough. Maybe there hasn't been enough outreach to those individuals that could potentially significantly benefit from this or make sure they can, or maybe there's other suppositions about, given the continually changing policies that are going on here, that there might be other implications. There's a few things that come to mind for me without having actually spoken to any large group of people that could give me their perspective and answer on that.
Then I'll give my analysis. When I say analysis, it's not an opinion. An analysis is usually a gathering of information, like I did this afternoon. Go underground and
Sure.
going on the ground and actually mingle. Of course, I had my N95 mask on. Mingle with some of these migrants, and this is what I found out. This is what I think has happened. The cartel members were setting up shop south of the river. Now they have set up shop on the north of the river, downtown, that area that we're talking about. Do you think that's possible that has happened?
I could see that potentially being possible. I mean, it kind of comes to a question, and I'm not trying to dodge your question, but this is what immediately associates it for me is about how can human trafficking happen? I mean, if someone doesn't have someone under lock and key, kept either stuck in a room or, chained up or something like that, how can human trafficking? That's a question that I often encounter. It's kind of in a very similar nature is okay, if these people are here, they know they can go to law enforcement, right? And there are still so many lies that can come that way, particularly from the cartels about, oh no, if you go there and out of our control kind of thing, all these things bad will happen to you. And even if someone with perfect information might think that this is unreasonable, who would actually believe that? Someone actually being in those situations, having heard previous accounts of people that have been in either, I mean, it almost ends up being kind of a domestic violence situation of you don't know what is outside of it because you have been so ingrained and so it's so hard to see beyond what your current reality and existence is. I mean, it's literally a form of abuse in its own way. So I don't know of any specific instances, but I can just say I wouldn't be surprised if there is some potential co-opting, almost like you're talking about, of these facilities or of the implications of them to make them think well, you can't go there because they're out of my control. So therefore, I got to tell you some reason why I don't want to go there because of other implications. So I guess I could see that as a potential reality based on previous situations that I've read about or have been informed of.
Right. Okay. One other thing, a piece of information I like to tell the listeners. Today I did see 2 patrol cars on both sides of the street, whatever. So they are aware. The police are aware. The city, the police are aware that there is some activities going on there with either drug use or drug selling. And why? Because people who live under these conditions, they have to have some kind of way of coping, and that's what happens when you're the migrants. They have to cope somehow with a hunger, with the cold, and drugs is one of the mechanisms that they cope with. Okay, I'll let you go. I will take another drive-by tomorrow afternoon, Friday, to see how the condition is there. And hopefully, most of these migrants that are sleeping on the sidewalk against the fences, whatever they're doing, will be transferred over to a hotel or the civic center. Okay, Andrew, I'll let you go.
No, sure thing. Thanks for the point of the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the call, and have a wonderful Christmas vacation.
You too as well. Have a great one there. Appreciate it. All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. And right before that, one thing that an update of a question that I had. Again, according to our news partners, AK Fox 14 Moorhead Middle School will be utilized beginning next week, according to the El Paso Independent School District. So not up yet, but soon to be, as we are still expecting cold weather through definitely the end of this year, maybe not always freezing, but definitely getting close there. So taking the next break right now. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got new crash activity, I-10 westbound. It's going to be on the Mesa exit ramp. Watch for delays in that area. Then I-10 eastbound, earlier collision on the Artcraft off-ramp. That was still working, looks like a few minutes ago, but it should be wrapping up soon. Then Gateway westbound at Sumac. You've got a collision there, too. I'm Ryan Levine, watching your roadways.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Is the Binance crypto exchange at risk of blowing up next? And what does Bitcoin's price tell us what comes next? I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
Mom, Dad, let's talk. Before you know it, I'm out of here. I want to go to college.
or start a business. My allowance ain't gonna cut it. Ooh, sorry I said ain't.
The UNEST app puts smart investing tools right in the palm of your hand. And with the UNEST gifting link, friends and family can contribute to your child's account. Start investing today. Download the UNEST app from the App Store or Google Play. See terms and conditions at unest.co. That's UNEST.co.
New on Curiosity Stream. Meet the man who dove deep and changed modern nautical engineering and warfare forever on John Philip Holland, inventor of the submarine. And in 200 AD, before modern medicine, a Chinese doctor performed life-saving surgeries. How'd he do it? And how has surgery evolved since? It's the new series, The Past, Present, and Future. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. And for a limited time, get 40% off our annual plan. That's just $1 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Education doesn't just take place in the classroom. There are many ways for children of all ages to learn about sustainability and environmental education at home. Visit iHeartRadio.com/Earth for a list of resources, activity guides, and toolkits that are educational and fun for the whole family. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer. It can sound a lot like,
Building looks mediocre.
Designs need a do-over.
or even,
Install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
We put all your music, radio stations, and podcasts in one easy-to-use app, and we made it completely free because, well, let's face it, you have other things to do with your money. Download the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, being live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. We are super short timing it for this segment right now, so don't worry. We'll still be coming back with hour 2 of the program here. Just needed to tag in, check, and let you know what you got going on for you. So back hour 2 coming up. If you're on the line, stay there. If you want to get on the line at any point or give it a shot, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break, more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got new crash activity, I-10 westbound. It's going to be on the Mesa exit ramp. Watch for delays in that area. Then I-10 eastbound, earlier collision on the Artcraft off-ramp. That was still working, looks like, a few minutes ago, but it should be wrapping up soon. Then Gateway westbound at Sumac. You've got a collision there, too. I'm Ryan Levine.
News on the hour and
roadways.
a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The president wants Americans to take the severe winter weather hitting large parts of the U.S. seriously. The so-called once-in-a-generation winter storm has been disrupting flights this week, and travelers can expect more of it during the weekend. Flight tracking site FlightAware reports that more than 2,000 flights have been canceled Thursday, and 1,000 more scheduled for Friday have already been canceled. FlightAware also reports more than 5,000 flights have been delayed Thursday. The December sell-off is back. Natalie Migliori reports.
Stocks fell today as investors didn't carry on a rally from yesterday. They're concerned about central banks taking action to control inflation, which could raise the risk of a recession. At the closing bell, the Dow Jones fell 349 points, the S&P 500 dropped 56 points, and the Nasdaq lost 233 points.
The disgraced crypto king is out on a $250 million bail. This after Sam Bankman-Fried, founder and former CEO of FTX, arrived in New York after agreeing to be extradited from the Bahamas. Billions of dollars vanished when the crypto firm imploded suddenly last month. Huge tent camps are growing on the Mexican border with Texas as migrants wait for what they believe will be their chance to claim asylum. This after Title 42 sits in limbo.
People mainly from Haiti and Venezuela, and there's a lot of confusion.
Rice University's Guadalupe Correa is in the Mexican border town of Matamoros. She says most of the asylum seekers are willing to wait. Many Christmas movies are watched this time of year, and they could actually be helping us. Whether they're classics or more modern movies, psychotherapist Stacia Alexander says they're good for our mental health because they work to release brain chemicals that help us feel relaxed and happy. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. New Jersey is bolstering gun laws in response to the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling earlier this year that struck down concealed carry restrictions. Natalie Migliori reports.
This is now the law of the land.
Governor Murphy says the new law further restricts who can get a concealed carry license, limits where legal firearms can be carried, requires training for gun owners, and increases the cost of handgun purchase permits.
Which adheres to the Supreme Court's decision while keeping guns out of the wrong hands and out of places where they simply do not belong.
And in the face of potential legal challenges, Attorney General Matthew Platkin says he's ready for the fight. I'm Natalie Migliori.
The FCC is proposing a $300 million fine for a robocall scam that targeted millions of consumers. The FCC said the auto warranty scam campaign made more than 5 billion calls to more than 550 million phone numbers over the span of 3 months in 2021. Some Virginians could see an increase in wages. Rebecca Hughes has more.
Virginia and 25 other states will see an increase in minimum wage starting next year. The increase, according to the Code of Virginia, will affect residents in the service industry, as well as any individual employed by an employer, which includes home care providers. WRIC reports Virginia's new minimum wage increases to $12 per hour January 1st. Moving forward, any additional increases will need to be approved by lawmakers. Democrats hope to increase the minimum wage to $15 in the next few years, but that requires additional approval.
Americans' life expectancy is at its lowest in nearly 3 decades. CDC data shows a downward trend starting in 2020, landing at just over 76 years old for those born in the U.S. in 2021. That's the lowest life expectancy has been since 1996. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Is the Binance crypto exchange at risk of blowing up next? And what does Bitcoin's price tell us what comes next? I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Texas! This time of year is all about coming together and enjoying time-honored holiday traditions or starting your own. This winter, make sure your fellow Texans, especially those with a serious mental health condition, know how to stay informed and protected from increased COVID-19 risks associated with serious mental illness. Getting vaccinated is pro-Texan protection against COVID-19. Visit www.vaccines.gov/search to find a vaccine provider near you.
Hey El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. The Christmas season is here, and this is our gift to you. We're offering our biggest discounts of the year on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory.
Get our biggest discounts of the year and exceptional trade-in values during the Big Finish sales event at Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. For a limited time, get $5,000 below MSRP and super low 4.9% APR for 72 months on new 2022 Ram 1500 Lone Star models. $5,750 below MSRP on new 2022 Durango SUVs, $4,000 off new 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokees, all with no payments for 90 days. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL, 4.9% APR, $1,606 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. I got to say, I love doing this, and we keep doing it every Monday through Friday, except only on Thursday this week, and we're doing it, calling it Throwdown Thursday, the open line show for the week, so we are taking those calls, comments, trying to get to as many of the things going on, including some concerns about the on the spending bill, as James Ratcliffe referring to it as the mega trill bill. That's an interesting way to put it. I mean, it's that like $1.7 trillion, so you got to keep updating that phrase here. I mean, it used to be a million here, a million there. You start talking about real money. Now, more recently, it's been a billion here and a billion there. You start talking about real money, and now we're getting damn near a trillion here or a trillion there. You start talking real money. And so, I mean, it's worth looking into, knowing what's in there and the important things. And one thing he does point out, that is I think it's the 40 and change, 45 is last I saw, million extra, billion with a B, going to Ukraine as part of that. Here, of course, there was the historic address done by Ukrainian President Zelensky yesterday. Interesting circumstance, caught some snippets of it, didn't focus on that one as much because there was nothing terrifically surprising even from the transcripts I did see there as well. But other issues going on in the area people are bringing up here, including Maria Coleman saying, where are our elected representatives? The mayor declares a state of emergency, then again becomes MIA. Then the CM, I think referring to city manager there, correct me if I'm wrong, saying the CM has probably left town for the holiday. There seems to be an absence of real leadership here. Big title, salaries, and perks, low on results. I mean, there are, of course, shelters and things going on, but I guess at a base level, I can't understand a level of frustration maybe with how this is being handled or what's going on there. I mean, demanding better and accountability from our elected officials is something I'm going to pretty much always support, but I guess I'll be wondering what more you would actually specifically want to see as well and how that can be achieved. I think it would be an important thing, definitely. And Edgar Ortiz asking a little bit earlier, did anyone know what the stats are so far on the checkpoint and art craft with the semis? I think you're talking about what was going on with the state troopers doing some enhanced / random inspections of some of the cargo traffic going on coming across the border. That being one of the things that's happened in recent weeks, but has not been anywhere near the main focus of either our discussions or a lot of the coverage we talk about either. So that would be a decent question. One thing I would look into, if you all were wondering what that huge cloud plume that was coming just south of Juarez here, that was basically on my entire drive on the way in. Apparently there was a recycling / landfill facility that caught fire that was having to have at least fire trucks, according to I believe the reporting I saw was from Telemundo, El Paso, and El Diario. Somewhere in between there and those was coming through the Mexican news sources because there wasn't a whole lot of reporting on it. Yeah, apparently recycling and or landfill caught fire there, and at least 3 fire trucks, if I was doing my translations right, were having to be sent out there. So that's what I saw coming in this afternoon. But a lot more comments coming in, those that are dropping those likes and reacts that we all do appreciate. We do have Raul Terrazas, Bernadette Bandacol, Ida Beza Gardner, Pat Mack, Amber Bonda, Flaco Jimenez, Robert Haynes, Robbie Flores, Ion Grim, Monaco Cervantes, and I do believe also on that list, if I'm not mistaken, why does it not always show up? Jerry Hart's a little bit earlier as well. So do appreciate that. In any case, Headclore wishing a happy Festivus out there. Festivus for the rest of us. Oh man, I messed up, y'all. I don't know why I didn't call this the airing of grievances, but maybe I didn't want to bring that down on myself either here. In any case, yes, happy early Christmas if we're not going to hear, if you're going to be tuning out before the end of the program. And I hope you all have a safe holidays. We don't hear before the end of the year. Just brief programming note. We are, of course, going to be doing abbreviated shows next week. We'll be on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off for the observed holidays at the beginning and the end of the week. And then we'll be back on the first Tuesday of the year. I do believe that's the 3rd. I'm remembering my calendar's right. Correct. It is. Yeah, I got something right. Any case, those are some of the things that we got coming up for you. And those still going to be having some history shows going on at the same time. And just as a reminder, because I had given the wrong impression last week, that Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant is open through this Saturday. They'll be closing at 3 p.m. on Christmas Eve. So I will be headed out there after the El Paso History Radio Show. If you want to get some good new Mexican food, the old Greg's recipes made new. It's not the same food, just the recipes are the same. And they're doing some great New Mexican restaurants, one of my favorite chili rellenos in town. In any case, back to the phone lines here. We are, of course, doing the whole open line thing. So again, that number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Marco over in Central on the line with us right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
What's up, Andrew?
Hey there. What's on your mind?
Oh, like always, a lot. Man, Andrew, do yourself a favor.
Mm-hmm.
When Eric calls, just get him to go to his point. And once he's done, you do away with him like Saddam Hussein in mid-sentence in the gallows. Bye-bye. Because it's double speak. Yeah, I almost wanted to come on and be like, welcome to 1984. Because he's engaging you, and this isn't towards you. Like, understand what I'm saying? It's not towards you, but it triggers that. He triggers your ego because he's challenging your intellectualness. And somebody like him, you have to understand, he's speaking to you in terms where he speaks with other people that are of like mind like him. That's why he won't understand you and you won't understand him. It becomes a CF of, I don't understand what you're saying. You're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a homophobe, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, whoa. I'll give you a prime example of this. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
The left says, you're a Nazi. You're a Nazi. And you're like, I'm not a Nazi. And so you shouldn't even engage it. You know why? They're redefining the reality of the WW2 trope to fit the white guy with a tiki torch. And so this is what they do.
Okay.
And so they engage you to try and make you seem like whatever. And quite frankly, he's like Brainy Smurf. Like, you will never convince Eric of anything. You could show him reality and it wouldn't matter to him. Here, I'll give you one real quick. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard this anywhere. And I always, again, people talk to me because I have a restaurant downtown. By the way, I challenge you on those chile rellenos. I think I make the best chile rellenos in town in my restaurant.
Fair enough. I have not been by your place yet, so
neither here
I
or
mean,
there.
the benefit of the doubt, absolutely.
But here's the thing. Last night I heard, and let's hope it's not true, but if it is true, let's keep her in our hearts. I heard a little girl passed away at the Civic Center, and it was a migrant little girl. I haven't heard that. I heard it. I don't want to say specifically how I heard it because I don't want to put anybody in at risk.
Okay.
But this is what I heard. My concern is this: are we going to hear if any migrants die on the street? These people will go away like dust. And people like Eric, they don't care. I know they sit there and they want to be superfluous in the way they speak and listen to me. And I'm trying to show you my greatness, my intellectual prowess. And the fact of the matter is, all that layering that they're doing is just trying to divert you from speaking the truth because they're afraid of it. I'll give you another example of that. Look at Darrell Brooks in the Waukesha case. Kept interrupting the lady. Where's this? I'm this. And he just kept being a pain in the ass. And finally, you know what? It didn't matter how much he interrupted. Justice came to him. So you, Andrew, next time he calls, get him on his point, because I want to hear him like, hey, I love Hitler. I want to hear Eric yell it out. Because the fact of the matter is, he himself is a little Nazi. He is the epitome of what he would be, like an SS officer if the Third Reich existed. You know why I tell you that, Andrew? Because people like Eric would want to see you re-educated. People like Eric would want to see you punished. They would want to see you thrown to the wall. You know why? Because you disagree with them. This is why I said, welcome to 1984. Step out of line, we'll beat you down. I like to look at Eric and be like, Eric, how come it is it that, I don't know, the mortality rate in the United States has dropped from 81 to 76? Could it be the vaccine? Or I'm sorry, the gene therapy? I don't know. The cases of myocarditis are everywhere. Could that be it? He would say that, oh, you're just a right winger. You're reading. No, I got that information from Dr. Robert Malone, who gave a speech on his own technology. Oh, you're just no. I heard this from Peter Braken. I heard this from many scholars that are professional that are saying, hey, slow down with this technology because it's not ready for prime time. They're not even saying these doctors could go. Like Dr. Peter McCullough is just straight out saying, this what they've done is criminal to people. And it eventually will come up. People will say, well, come on. How can you say that, right wingers? No, the thing is that you all on the left understand this. And I'll make it short and sweet here.
Mm-hmm.
Emperor Constantine, I'm sorry. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When the Ottoman Empire came to be, you know the first thing he did? He went and rounded up all the traitors to Rome, and he executed them because they were traitors to Rome. Eric, you think you're on the winning side? You're not. You know what happened to Mao's revolution, the People's Revolution? The first thing they did when Mao came into power and finally assumed whatever hood he could, killed the nurses, the doctors, the teachers, the attorneys, anybody of power. And so it was the common people that had to take their place. You know what happened when the people took power and created the People's Party in the chamber? They went and arrested Mao's wife and they poisoned Mao. You're not on the winning team, Eric. There's a lot of things that are going on. You want to go after the people? You want to know why there's such a tragedy on the border? Eric, why don't we start asking the NGOs that are being driven by the WEF, by the UN? Why can't we ask those questions? Because you know why? You look at us, people that ask questions, like it's ludicrous because you're too busy hiding. When we tell you we don't want our children groomed, you say we're anti-trans. When we tell you things that, hey, these aren't normal things that you're doing because you're doing them in defiance of reality. This is why I always rag on the left when it comes to global warming, because it's just lies. Hey, can a man be a woman? They will tread around that forever.
Let me just say, I mean, there's a lot going on here that you're bringing up, but just to the core point you are bringing up there of when it comes to discussion, the way we have it, I guess, yeah, if there's a way to engage me, it's in debate more than anything, and if I have a foible, it's letting people go on too long or get too much engaged on it, and I get that entirely. But let me just say this, I also do find a difference between just argumentation for the sake of it and then like flaming and or trolling. And I guess that's the point where I'm going to start being like, okay, this isn't even substantive. If you just want to shout about how people are bad and evil and not even talk about the idea of tone policing is kind of laughable to me, because yeah, if you just want to shout at people, if you just want to go to essentially an extreme of I'm going to call you all the bad names there are, it's not really a substantive point being made among other things. But we want to talk about the actual issues that they're on about here. Like, okay, here are the issues and here's why they're wrong and what the alternative would be. There's never been a subject that I've been particularly, except for like, you know, the basic right to exist of people, those kind of things, that I've not been willing to entertain or at least talk about and respond to. But if you want to just again flame people, plenty of other places to do that there. So I guess I don't see it so much as you're bringing up a lot of historical allusions there to Constantine and Mao and the Great Leap Forward as you're talking about. But let me just say this, that I don't even see it as that grandiose in this case. I see this as a more or less tropes, or at least trolling, and a lot of tropes being put forth there. So tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. So I do appreciate the point and the call. You have a good one there, and Merry Christmas to you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. And with that, taking that break, we're going to get back on with the phone call. So if you want to get on the line, remember that number to do so is, because it is our open line show for the week, Throwdown Thursday. In any case, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Crews on scene of a collision, I-10 westbound on the Mesa Street off-ramp. Watch for delays in that area. Also seeing delays on 10 westbound from Lee Trevino over towards McRae. As for eastbound 10, still a bit slow. Artcraft over to Mesa Street, but it does look like that earlier crash, 10 eastbound at the Artcraft exit ramp, has cleared. I'm Ryan Levine, and I'm keeping an eye on your roadways.
This report is brought to you by Positive Coaching Alliance. Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
Paid for by Health Choice Helpline, LLC.
If you don't have health insurance or your health insurance cost is too high, you must hear this message because you and your family could now qualify for free health insurance coverage right here in Texas. That's right. Call now to see if you qualify for extremely low cost or even free health insurance coverage for you and your family with rates as low as $1 per month. And 70% of people can get free health insurance coverage. Just call 800-520-8543 right now to see if you qualify. Our agents will instantly see if you qualify for low cost or free health insurance from the leading insurance companies in your area. It's fast, easy, and free. To see if you qualify, just call 800-520-8543 and get the insurance you and your family need. Don't go another day uninsured or underinsured. Call 800-520-8543 right now to get the health insurance you and your family need for as little as $1 per month or even free. Call 800-520-8543. 800-520-8543. 800-520-8543.
Look through your children's eyes to see the true magic of a forest. It's a storybook world for them. You look and see a tree. They see the wrinkled face of a wizard with arms outstretched to the sky. They see treasure in pebbles. They see a windy path that could lead to adventure. And they see you, their fearless guide through this fascinating world.
Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
My son Finn was born with congenital heart disease and spent the first 8 months of his life in the hospital. Starlight Children's Foundation has played an important role in our lives. For 5 weeks as a baby, Finn lived in a Starlight Hero wagon instead of having to sleep in a hospital bed. Starlight provides moments of joy for families like mine at a time where there's very little to be found. Learn more about how Starlight brightens the lives of sick kids by visiting starlight.org today.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Who, me? Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, as I was kind of halfway reading a comment there for a second. Of course, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one. It's the pages we have up the longest and where most of the comments come in, but also got the YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch streams on the, particularly the Facebook. Dropping those likes and reactions, do appreciate it. Royal Terrazas, Bernadette Bandicole, James Radcliffe, Ida Beza Gardner, Pat Mack, Amber Banda, Flaco Jimenez, Robert Haynes, Robbie Flores, I Own Grim, and then I do believe it's no, I already was Flaco Jimenez. Keep changing the list on me. Monica Cervantes and Jerry Hart, if I'm not missing anyone else there. If I am, apologies. Just doesn't always show me the list for whatever reason. In any case, it is the open line show for the week, and we are getting into some serious stuff. So, again, just that brief programming note. Tomorrow will be fill-in show, as it's the Christmas holiday observed, or Christmas Eve observed, on our end. So hopefully take that time and with your family and loved ones to spend time with them, or just do the decoration, do your charity, do whatever is right for you out there. And then we'll be off Monday as well. We'll be a new history show, well, a replay of one of our better ones, a replay of the interview with Kevin Lovell at the occasion of his departure from town as one of, if not the longest running GM in town. So, and then we'll be back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week, and then off for the observed New Year's Eve there as well. So that's the kind of question coming up. Austin Redfern asking that. Want to make sure you got the clarity of it. We'll be up on the social media as we usually are on those days. So no worries there. In any case, let's go back to those phone lines here. We do have Andrew on the west side with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew. And Merry Christmas to you.
Oh, to you as well. What's on your mind?
The Ukraine.
It's yeah, that's a big one. Okay, shoot.
Yes. Well, we've spent over $100 billion on Ukraine, and that's more than the budget in 1 year for the Russian military, which amounts to about $65 billion a year.
Yeah, I does that include what is coming, or is that the actual figure so already here? Because I know that there's that like a 45 inch or 40 and change that is in the upcoming the fiscal year 2023 budget.
That's the upcoming, including the upcoming
Okay.
budget that's coming up.
Yeah, so okay, that makes a level of sense here. So I guess the way I kind of think about it, because there's been, it's a phrase that's been a little bit fraught in the past, fight them over there so we don't have to fight them here. I mean, that got used a lot during the whole war on terror period, but I gotta say this, things is about as much as there has been new technology that has been in place coming up with this, that, I mean, tank warfare has been not quite but invalidated, and drones have really seen their advent. That's the advanced technology does cost a lot more. And sure, even if there's serious and many questions about the status and actually compatibility of Russia's tank forces, they're still one of the primary methods of projecting power on the battlefield. And it is honestly maybe not an order of magnitude cheaper, but the amount of missiles to be produced to be able to take out that tank ends up being, the volume measures up. We've seen that same kind of strategy being not exactly put forth, but a lot of the like white papers that I've managed to see, or just the strategy that has been put forth by like the Chinese, are the idea of, okay, if we can use a $100,000 missile to take out a $500,000 tank, we're still ahead, even though you might have to produce a number of the missiles and those kind of things. So I guess of the things, I mean, anytime a country gets a blank check from us, that does raise questions for me. But in this case, I guess it's one of the more justifiable, at the very least so far, because, yeah, this is very much this is Czechoslovakia in the 1930s kind of situation, the way it feels like to me.
Well, most tanks you can take out nowadays with a Jaeger system. But anyway, what worries me is the proliferation and us sending Patriot missiles over there. Of course, they're going to be trained in Germany.
That's been the supposition, though. Of course, this is one of those things that I pay attention to and been doing the deep dive into. And there's a couple of questions about that, because, a Patriot missile battery, to my understanding, takes roughly 90 to 100 personnel per battery, either in maintaining the loads, doing the targeting, figuring it out, actually firing it, all of that. So that's a quite heavy personnel. And this isn't like a weekend seminar that you can take on, learn how to fire Patriot missiles in your free time. It doesn't work that way. So that's where proliferation, but also potential, what's the phrase I'm looking for, expansion of the conflict could come in, because there's going to probably be at least a little bit of impetus, whether followed through or not, on the idea of, well, okay, we've got trained crews, can't we just give them like advisors or something like that? Because as much as, and I mean, it's been put out by the Russian military at this point that any Patriot missile batteries are going to be quote unquote legitimate targets, and therefore any crews of them would be as well. I cannot imagine a quicker way to probably see an expansion of this conflict in scope than if there were to be either U.S. or even just European service members that end up, well, being targeted and attacked and eventually dying because of this here. So that's one of the real serious ways I see, and the real issues I see with this potential involvement of the Patriot batteries.
Yes, and that was going to be my next point. Yeah, it takes quite a few individuals to man a Patriot system, and what the president is doing is he's putting our troops in harm's way. Now, my next question to people out there is, why is it NATO and other NATO countries being pushed to assist more instead of the U.S. having to haul the burden of financing Ukraine's war?
I mean, we're definitely a major part of it. And again, I think that at least for, lawmakers and decision makers, this has been a pretty easy one to go through. I mean, there are definitely levels of disagreement I'm aware of here, but I mean, as much as getting anywhere into an expanded conflict, I mean, yes, Russia keeps particularly rattling the nuclear saber, which that is a level of concern I have for that as well. Do not get me wrong. But the way the conflict is right now, the scope of it, the rules of engagement, etc. Here, this if you want to get down to brass tacks with it, this is the first emergence of industrialized warfare we have seen this century, this millennia, if you want to be even more specific with it, because this is not just a whatever the force of arms is, right? This is not a how big is the standing army, how big is the troops you've got right now. This is becoming a how important the supply lines are, how important your ability to produce things is. So we are, in essence, in just strict talking about it, engaged in kind of Cold War style, because of course there has been no declaration of war by the U.S. nor NATO. None of those Article 3, I forget about that one offhand here, triggers that have been activated. Maybe it's Article 5, let me look that up over the break. But there have been none of those exact triggers, and yet there has been, U.S. is certainly a huge funder of Ukraine in this conflict so far. I don't think anyone has reached near the bounds of $40+ million. There has been other funding. I mean, the Javelin systems, St. Javelin. I've seen the poster/propaganda coming out on that are fascinating to me. But beyond that, there has been other, similar systems, even some old Soviet bloc technology still maintained by like Lithuania, Estonia, and Poland, among others, that has been supplied to Ukraine. Other of the more modern, like the Jaeger systems, like you mentioned, and other ways like that has been coming through. Again, no one anywhere near the level that I think the U.S. is, at least to my understanding, but there has been some supplies going through, which is why the potential winter offensives that are being looked at right now, Russia showing signs of that with more concentration with some of their allies to the west of Ukraine, that may be a major focus of them trying to essentially cut off those supply lines. So, I mean, to your core point, the U.S. has been the major funder, though there have been other fundings, if maybe not totally NATO branded.
Well, this cannot be, these people in Congress and the Senate, they cannot be that incompetent. And in my opinion, Putin is holding back. The Soviet Union, by my estimate and my research, it has about 20 divisions in reserve. He's at any time, mark my words, my fear is this: Putin is going to roll through the Ukraine and Eastern Europe.
Potentially. I mean, this is getting to a lot of those kind of considerations of, the Russian military juggernaut and how many tanks they have. And there have been quite a lot of holes shown there. And some of the stuff I look at, like intel, open source intel, I don't have like secret sources or anything coming out of Russia even itself, of the ways that there have even been protests against their conscription campaign. The roughly 300,000 that I think kind of go along with what you're talking about there are, concerning, but also the fact of preparation. Kind of as a random aside here, I was recently reminded of the Kursk incident that happened in the early part of this century. That was a earlier part of kind of the early I keep using early here, soon after Putin was in the presidency at that point in time, before he went back and forth between the prime minister whole thing. The Kursk incident was intended to show their military prowess, that they had the largest non-nuclear launching submarine that was nuclear powered, but was not necessarily like a ballistic missile sub, just meant to be a carrier and a missile truck hovering off the coast, doing torpedo strikes with that. And on its first trial run, it blew up and led to all of them dying. It was a whole fiasco that still has monuments to this day for it. And it came down to the fact is that, sure, there may be a lot. Russia's a giant country. I do believe it's number one by landmass, if I'm not mistaken, or at least very, very close. And they have a lot of military districts, so they can pull from a lot of resources, but the way it's been maintained or not, as the case may be. I mean, there's been analysis about how the sun wearing patterns in some of the trucks, so that even like basic maintenance that anyone who's been in a motor pool in the United States military would know, yeah, when you do that on Thursdays or whatever your day of the week is to do it, here the very basic stuff about like moving them around, make sure the engines turn over, that kind of thing hasn't even been done. So this is so much to say that, sure, Russia has a lot of potential, but whether or not they ever actually follow through with it or have their potential unlocked, most of the estimates I've seen in any reasonable way is that if you actually want to see combat effective troops, it takes roughly about 2 years to get them through here, which is why, sure, boot camp in the U.S. is on the order of months. Then you go to AIT, and even then when you hit for like Marines, the fleet, or actually get your first posting at whatever actual, base you're going to be at for the Army, it still takes quite a long time for you to get up to speed. So if we're expecting any of those even new combat forces coming out of the potential to be deployed into Ukraine to be truly like crack troops, combat effective, and even battle hardened, I don't know if is a truly applicable phrase anymore with how much things have changed here. This is so much to say that I'm dubious about how well this is actually going to work, and whether Putin is just doing more saber rattling, say, oh, we're totally going to do this, given how, the relative debacles that have happened with the actual commitment of troops he's done so far.
Well, just there's an old saying: never underestimate your adversaries.
Fair enough.
One of your people out there who's former infantry can correct me on this. I believe a division, I believe 10 divisions. You're talking about what, 250,000 troops. One of you infantry guys, correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, Andrew, have a good weekend and Merry Christmas to you and everybody else.
Merry Christmas to you as well. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Likewise.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, taking more calls, taking more of the discussion points that we got up there, trying to get into some more of the points also being made in the comments. I don't want to ignore those. When we're in the calls, I tend to focus on the calls. So sue me. Anyway, back after this break, more Talk El Paso. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Amanda Guillen. The migrant crisis in El Paso continues, where a record number of migrants have showed up in recent weeks. More than 400 National Guard members are out in force. And with current shelters already at or above capacity, El Paso announced it will use 2 empty middle schools to house the migrants. Some neighbors concerned. Federal officials have moved nearly 10,000 migrants out of El Paso. 1/3 of them were expelled under Title 42. The other 2/3 went to other cities to continue processing their immigration claims. More local news now, as El Paso's newly appointed district attorney is now officially on the job. Former Judge Bill Hicks was sworn into office on Wednesday as the DA for the 34th Judicial District, which covers El Paso, Hudspeth, and Culberson counties. Governor Abbott's appointee took his oath of office in the ceremonial courtroom at the El Paso County Courthouse. Hicks added that any personnel changes at the DA's office will happen after the new year begins. That has been your CBS 4 News Update. I'm Amanda Guillen.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Got crash activity. Should be in the clearing stages. I-10 westbound at the Mesa Street off-ramp, so just be aware of that. That may slow you down a little bit in that area. Also dealing with a medical response over at McRae and Edgemere. If you'd like to avoid it, you do have alternates like Montana or Hawkins that you could use. I'm Ryan Levine, and I'm keeping an eye on your roadways.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our cold Arctic air mass will move in overnight, bringing with it some bitterly strong cold winds. Friday morning will be a very difficult morning to get around town. If you are not properly dressed, it will be dangerous with wind chill factors as low as 10 degrees. We are staying very cold through your day Friday and windy. By Saturday, we'll start to have lighter winds and we'll start to see slightly warmer warmer temperatures. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
The bicycles, the toy fire trucks. Instead of giving gifts that kids will outgrow, invite grandparents and friends to contribute to your child's future with the UNest app. UNest allows parents to create an investment account for their kids that makes it easy to gift funds that can be used for college tuition, a first car, and more, just by sharing the link. To get started, download the UNest app from the App Store or Google Play. See terms and conditions at unest.co. That's UNEST.co.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
New on Curiosity Stream, from predicting volcanic eruptions to alligator blood that could save human lives.
We're already getting science data that's never been seen before.
The year's best scientific news and breakthroughs on top science stories of 2022. Plus, gazelles in the Old Testament, whales in the Gospel. We're well beyond fish and donkeys here. It's the old world creatures you'd never expect to find in Holy Scripture on Animals of the Bible. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. And for a limited time, get 40% off our annual plan. That's just $1 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Being on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of discussions going on there, including discussion about Law and Order episodes here. And RJ on the speech last night saying the U.S. is now there in person with military advisors in harm's way. We believe Ukraine soldiers can use our tech, like Zelensky said last night. I got a bridge for sale in Arizona. I mean, okay, I get in part what you're saying here, but you also got to remember that this conflict didn't start in February. I mean, this has been going on, sure, since February in the very open way, but really got to go back to essentially 2014 when we get, Maidan Square and some of the revolutionary-ish things, and essentially the fight for the soul of Ukraine, whether it would look eastward or westward as it was. And that's really when you start looking at the central tenets of this conflict that we are in now. So again, this is not just 1 year they came up here. I mean, drones have been a part of the proliferation for a while now, and the way these, we've been doing weapon supplies to them. I mean, you may remember those were some of the contentious parts of some of those impeachment hearings and processes that were going on in the previous administrations involved funding in that way. So I'm not saying there hasn't been a massive amount of it here, but I will say that there is some evidence that I've seen that there have been non-official advisors, but essentially, provided over there. I mean, the official things out there have been that, hey, we are bringing out like some leaders or things like that into Western nations, particularly in Europe, to do training, to then bring them back so they can inform the people that are still there, kind of thing. But I do think it's reasonable to assume that there's probably in some level, some presence, probably unofficial until, further notice. But if you want to get on the line, the number to call again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. James Radcliffe, Orange Revolution. Thank you. I can't remember the title for it here, even if there's been fascinating to me. There's been a few documentaries that came out even before February. So in any case, let's get back on the phone lines there. We do have Kevin on the east side with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Yes, Andrew, thank you very much. First of all, you have very thick skin to put up with some of these attacks on you personally by some of the callers, and I admire that.
Appreciate that.
It bothers me because you are the host And you are putting on this program. And by people attacking you personally and viciously, I don't like to hear that. Maybe you can put up with it. I can't, or I try not to.
Fair enough.
They're unwarranted. They're not based in facts. The first one of the callers, I forget his name, who called up talking about straw men and you conservatives and you people and all this. It doesn't get it with me. And he's, as you said, he's not convincing people without giving concrete examples of exactly what he's trying to get at and what his point is. Give me an example instead of being nebulous. He sounds like a professor up there at UTEP talking in Minor Hall or wherever. Tell me what you're talking about, and then we can go from there. But he doesn't do that, and this is not the first time this guy has called and made these crazy, in my opinion, arguments that are so nebulous they might as well be up in the stratosphere. Attacking the host is not the way to go. And another individual, well-meaning, I believe, gives you this advice. Everyone's trying to tell you, by the way, how to run your show. Read this book. Yeah. You'll learn something. Well, I have in my library, you have books in your library and everything that other people probably have not read, or too many people have not read.
Sure.
Instead of telling me to read a 400-page book, give me a summary. Tell me what your points are, why you're bringing this up. And you're using that book as an example. Okay, that's fine. Then maybe I'll look into it. And I might want to read it myself. But to give almost what amounts to an order, read this book, you'll learn something, it borders on the insulting. Don't you think so?
I mean, I take a lot of this in stride here. I mean, I knew what I signed up for whenever we started doing a show like this. Anytime you put yourself out there in the public sphere, anywhere near what we're doing here, you got to assume that you're going to have some people that are going to like you, some people that are going to dislike you, some people are going to hate your guts, but somehow they still end up listening every day. So, okay, I guess I take it in stride, so to speak, here, that, yeah, I can take it because I'm here for the discussion. I want to talk about these important things, and I know that there's just some things that come with the territory, though I can understand if that is irksome to others out here. Let me just say that, the way I try to take it, I guess what it comes down to, if we're going to get past the semantics of what is good faith or bad faith or not here, is that the way I take it is that I assume that anyone talking to me isn't an a-hole until proven otherwise. And now if someone wants to just, flame and do things like that, yeah, then we come around to those conclusions and we deal with it in stride. But I think that most people, no one's a villain in their own story, right, so to speak, and they all have things that they want to get out there and they want to make sure that they have their point heard. And I'm willing to hear it to a point if it starts becoming non-disruptive or at the very least not entertaining. If we can't be good, we should at least be worthwhile. I would hope so, and that's the way I try to take on it here. But we're gonna keep doing what we're doing as long as we're able to do so on air, which I see happening for the at least near foreseeable future.
Thank you, Andrew. I just want to say that I do resent those attacks because I take them personally. You don't, right? But this,
not really.
They are destroying or trying to destroy, attacking a person. Gives us this venue of being able to express our views. And by doing that, not with you, but maybe with some other host, the other host would say, well, I'm out of here. I'm going to move to Houston, or I'm going to go to New Orleans or something like that. I'm not going to put up with these people down here. You don't do that. And I admire that. One concrete question I'd like to bring up, and then I'll get off the line here. The question of asylum, and correct me if I'm wrong, please. I was under the impression years ago that the first country that a refugee sets foot in outside of his own country, he must ask for asylum in that country that he first stepped his foot into. And I don't see that happening with the migrants from South America, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, from any place. They're landing, for the most part, in Mexico, but they don't ask for asylum there, is what I understand. They'll ask for it when they come to the border of the United States. And could enlighten me on that, I would appreciate it. And,
Sure.
I wish you a good holiday season, and thank you very much.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. We'll get to that answer here, but Merry Christmas, and in case we don't hear from you again, Happy New Year as well.
Aye, sir. Thank you.
All right. I will say that the whole asylum situation, I mean, there were essentially part of the policies that were put forth during the Trump administration, if I'm not mistaken, like the first safe country. There were some phrases or thing along those lines that were brought up on the idea that if they are not claiming that in those countries, the, again, quote, first safe country they come to, so say people from points of origin within Mexico, yeah, the U.S. would then qualify. But say people coming from points in like Central and South America, Belize, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Colombia, and beyond, or, you know, like Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela, etc. Those would be, I guess the concept was that if you're not the first country that goes through, that would be, I don't remember the qualification and what safe was, but that was essentially a part of a program that was attempted to establish, but I don't think that one stayed around that long, or it may have been more rolled into like MPP, micro protection protocols, so-called remain in Mexico policy, etc. But I will say this, that the way, to my understanding, I am not an immigration attorney, I'm not an attorney in any way, I don't even play one on the radio, but that to my understanding that the way the U.S. has essentially signed on to it is that anyone showing up on our borders or showing up within actually the United States itself here, and that's a very important point I'll expound on in a second. Anyone within the United States that claims that they have reasonable fear to believe for either personal persecution, particularly, I mean, traditionally would have been said for, like political reasons, someone defecting from like the USSR back in the day would have been, they would have wanted to claim asylum in the United States as opposed to being dragged back by their own authorities, so to speak here. Let me just say this, that according to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, that refugees, just to quote from you here directly, refugee status is a form of protection that may be granted to people who meet the definition of refugee and who are of special humanitarian concern to the United States. Refugees are generally people outside of their country who are unable or unwilling to return home because they fear serious harm. Now, that's the current definition. And then additionally, they say asylum. Asylum status is a form of protection available to people who, A, meet the definition of refugee, B, are already in the United States, and C, are seeking admission at a port of entry. So the port of entry is another part of it here. But, and this is not to say they have to meet all of those qualifications, but that's the already being in the United States. That's where the sticking point comes in, because part of the reason that we saw be, again, concertina wire, still got those pictures up here, might as well pop them up since we're on the subject here real quick, that was going on down at the border of the concertina wire. This is from earlier this week, the pictures we got up on screen for you with the Texas Military Department Humvees and such, doing it across parts of the Rio Grande here in the El Paso area. The reason that was happening and they were doing that is because that land, the soft bank of the Rio Grande, that's the United States. Because if there are border barriers, I mean, none of them are directly in the middle of the channel, that by the Chamizal Agreement, believe it or not, sets that the border between the United States and Mexico is going to be the deepest channel, the middle of it, of the Rio Grande. So, fact of the matter is that when they're on those banks, they're in the United States. And so that's the way the laws are formulated, particularly the way that the United States has signed on to also international conventions on it. And so that's part of the issue when it comes to when we've talked about, I mean, in previous years of this show, we've talked about some had the contention that, just build a wall and it'll solve everything. And my contention has been, well, it's this whole time, not really, because of the way other things are formulated. Anytime they're talking about just physical barriers being a solution, misses so many of the other points that are made here, including the fact that, again, some of those that are still here, not even the asylum seekers, but those that are unauthorized within the United States, not legally allowed to be here, came over on visas and just stayed. So that's why this has been a much more multifaceted thing than that. So tell you what, we're going to squeeze in one more quick call. Jerry, we got about a couple minutes here. Can you think you can make your point in that time?
Yes, I hope I sure can.
All right,
I'd like to talk about the Twitter files. Have you heard or read anything on that?
I think I've read, I think I missed a couple of the episodes or the releases into there. I think the most recent one I saw was number 7.
Yes, sir. It sure was.
Okay.
And basically, the individual that's reporting on this, and he is a reporter, he's saying that the FBI is complicit with, they were working in collusion with Twitter and other outfits like Facebook, and they even paid them something like $3 million or $3.5 million out of our tax money for Twitter to squelch free speech from conservatives or people from the right that lean right. So this was done during or just before the election of 2020. So basically the FBI interfered with the 2020 election. And that's the reporter reporting this. And that's not only the reporter, that's Elon Musk also saying that.
Well, yeah, he's the
that.
major releases as part of this, of course, here, since he's the one inviting in these outlets in order to do a review of their files as they're putting them forth here. Elon Musk is an interesting character, and there's a lot to be said about maybe why he's going into this, even if he's maybe looking to go out of it. But yes, the information coming out as part of it is, I need to do more of a deep dive into it, but because I think actually looking at now, we're up to part 8. So I've missed the latest one here.
The next one will be part 8. It's strange, though, how Elon Musk can be the glory boy, right? The golden boy of the left before he buys Twitter, and then all of a sudden he buys Twitter and releases all these files. Now he's the devil. So it's strange that how that happens, how that works. Anyway, good job, Andrew.
We'll
put up with a lot of stuff out there, and you got to realize that some of these people that you talk to are not mentally stable all the time. Okay, their egos get the best when they're egotistical, self-centered, and such, and all. And drill sergeants used to take that out of a lot of us. I'm sad that sometimes I feel bad that we don't have a mandatory duty, where young men and young women do a 3-year hitch in the military, whether it be reserve or active duty.
Well, fair enough. Well,
they can learn a lot.
Well, thank you very much for the point of the call. We got to end it there. We got to take that break here, but have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year if we don't catch you. All right. And with that, got to take that break. So coming out of this break, till we got coming up for you on the show, reminder about our programming. So stay tuned. We're Talk El Paso after this break briefly here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got crash activity. Should be in the clearing stages. I-10 westbound at the Mesa Street off-ramp. So just be aware of that. That may slow you down a little bit in that area. Also dealing with a medical response over at McRae and Edgemere. If you'd like to avoid it, you do have alternates like Montana or Hawkins that you could use. I'm Ryan Levine, and I'm keeping an eye on your roadways.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
Is it getting harder to find new customers? After all, it's one thing to run a business and another to grow it. But what if you had access to everyone listening to me right now? Access to all the customers in your area. As the #1 audio company in America, iHeartMedia gives you access to all the customers you need to grow at a fraction of the cost of digital, video, and social advertising. Get started today. From your cell, dial pound 250 and say keyword great results. That's pound 250 and say great results.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you all for having tuned in, however you may have been doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming. Seriously, these conversations, as much as, well, there's a lot of opinions about them, and we'll keep taking those on as we do every Monday, usually every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. They're the reason I do this, because otherwise I could just be pontificating into a microphone, putting it out into cyberspace and everywhere else. And yeah, that's good for some people, but that's not what I want to do. I want us to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland. So again, remember, we're off tomorrow. We'll be some replacement programming, and then same for Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So another Throwdown Thursday coming up here. Intense show, some calls about that there. And of course, some history radio shows, talking with Kevin Lovell over this weekend. So we are going to be doing more of that. But in the meantime, until then, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. And Merry Christmas. We'll see you all next week.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got crash activity. Should be in the clearing stages. I-10 westbound at the Mesa Street off-ramp. So just be aware of that. That may slow you down a little bit in that area. Also dealing with a medical response over at McRae and Edgemere. If you'd like to avoid it, you do have alternates like Montana
News
or
on the hour
Hopkins that
and
you
a
can
half.
use. I'm Ryan
Traffic and
Levine,
weather all
and I'm
day.
keeping an eye
News
on your
Radio
roadway.
690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Over 2,000 flights have been canceled so far today as the country